Hello and welcome to the show. It is packed as usual. This week our new guy Gugu gets himself an education. Harry Fisher gives you an education. But first, Matt Durrans sort of needs an education.
Cool looking, isn't it? This is the FXDR, and it is that rarest of things, a completely brand new model from Harley-Davidson. Or is it? Well, yes, strictly speaking, yes it is. There's never been an FXDR before, but there has been in the Harley range, right up until the end of last year, something with a very similar focus. And that, obviously, was the V-Rod. It was the muscle bike in Harley's range, but it had a liquid-cooled engine that was developed in conjunction with Porsche, and even though I thought it looked absolutely fantastic, the average fan of the brand thought it was quite possibly the work of the devil. No traditional air-cooled engine, the futuristic cruiser looks and a lack of chrome might not have appealed to the masses, but it did win new admirers in many other parts of the world. Harley-Davidson eventually killed it off last year after a decent 16-year run in production. It's pretty obvious that no such design risks were going to be taken with the FXDR. This is a much more traditional looking muscle bike, although there are still some neat design touches which mark this out as a proper 21st century Harley. Lighting is taken care of by LEDs all around, and this means the traditional round headlight and indicators have been ditched in favour of these more up-to-date items. There's just the one silencer instead of the usual two, and there's no set of clocks, just a small digital display for that clean, minimalist look. Out of sight, the electronics comprise an ABS system which is there to keep you safe during heavy braking, and then of course there's, well, of course there isn't actually any traction control, which seems a little bit alarming considering 160 Newton meters and a cold, wet road surface. A strange decision, that one. And talking of cool, there are just certain riding positions in the world of motorcycling that make you feel cool, and this is one of them. Feet, well, they're well forward, and on a cruiser, instead of the usual handlebar, believe it or not, we've actually got some clip-on, so you're pulled quite a long way forward. It's called the clamshell position, and there's just no getting around it. You feel like a proper badass biker when you're riding it. And now we get to the point in the test where I normally fire the bike up and ride off into the distance so we can get some shots of it doing its thing, riding around. Unfortunately, for the 10 days that I've had this bike, it's been raining for 11 of those 10 days. So I haven't managed to get any footage, but just for a bit of a change, I'm going to show you this film. This is what Harley-Davidson thinks about its new drag race replica.
The idea for this bike was to take the Softail platform that we just reinvented last year and push the envelope with a drag-inspired long, lean power cruiser.
We wanted a nod to our drag racing performance success, but there's a radical little surprise that you instantly experience when you throw this thing into a corner, and that it handles.
It's got exceptional lean angle and the 19-inch front tire, so that reduces the effort that you require to steer the bike. And the combination of the rake and the trail and how we've tuned the tires to work with the chassis and the suspension, it handles exceptionally well.
Some of the design details on the FXDR 114 that I'm pretty stoked about, and were the most fun to actually to design. Of course, the intake looks like it came off a pro stock drag racing car. You can say the same thing about the exhaust. We've never designed an exhaust system that looks even remotely like this. It looks completely at home sitting on the Milwaukee 8 powertrain.
So we tuned that intake, both the volume and how the air flows through it. Everything about this bike speaks to performance. We made no compromises. This bike is all about performance, and it's getting a 114. I'd say the biggest thing you're going to feel, seat of the pants acceleration when you roll onto that throttle. It just pulls away from anything that we've made in the past.
We had a chance to actually take the swing arm and play it up as a design element that integrates this massive rear tire. We spent a lot of time sculpting the shape of the swing arm to make sure that not only were we achieving something that was visually beautiful, but actually functioned flawlessly as well.
The FXDR 114 has inverted front forks with cartridge damping to give you that connected, planted feel without sacrificing comfort.
The main customer who we actually focused the motorcycle on was the person who wants performance, puts performance ahead of just about anything else.
This bike makes a statement and then backs it up when you get on it and ride it.
Strangely, I think I'm about to agree with Harley-Davidson. Yes, that was a promo film, but it looked pretty good, didn't it, going around the track? And I have to say that most of what they said there is absolutely spot on. Looks, we've already discussed those, they're brilliant. And the most amazing surprise about this bike is the handling. Let's remember that this is still 300 kilos of bike. It's got a massive 240 section rear tyre. And by all laws of physics, it should not go around corners. And it should be a real pain to ride. But the FXDR is an absolute belter for the corners. I know you won't believe me, but it is. It's nice and light and easy to turn. And beyond all expectations, it's really very good fun. And the engine, well, it's an American muscle bike, so with nearly 1.9 litres of V-twin, obviously it's got shed loads of torque, 160 Newton meters of shed loads, in fact. And that makes riding it really entertaining as long as you ride it like it was meant to. In other words, short shift through the gears. You can be in 60 k's an hour in top gear, 6th gear, and still accelerate away. The thing is, big V-twins can be awfully deceptive when it comes to working out what horsepower they've got. So I thought I'd organise a bit of an impromptu drag race. My 9-year-old 675cc street triple against, well, a 2019 Harley-Davidson muscle bike.
That didn't really go as planned, did it?
Yes, look, that is my bike, so I always knew it was going to be quite quick, but I figured the Harley would kind of leap into an earlier, more convincing lead before the Triumph came back.
Yeah, you got about a meter's lead in the first 5 meters and then had to overtook you, and that was it.
All right, don't rub it in. I mean, this is the ultimate launch type of bike. It's a drag kind of replica in a way. So,
well,
and a big
evidently
fat
not.
tyre. Yeah, I know. It was a little bit disappointing.
Okay, well, let's move on from that ignominious defeat. Despite your aversion to this type of bike, I'm suspecting that you actually quite like it.
Yes. And no. I have genuinely enjoyed this motorbike. It's great fun to ride. Like I've said about the engine and the looks and all that stuff, it really works. It's an enjoyable motorbike. I mean, even the brakes, Harley-Davidson brakes, as normally cue a couple of good gags. This has got twin 300mm discs up front, and it's 2-finger stopping power, genuine 2-finger stopping power. And the rear one is almost 300mm disc. It's massive. So braking is excellent as well, which it never normally is.
That's all really lovely. I feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Good. That's...
So what's wrong with it then?
Well, look, the end is a muscle bike.
Yes.
It's maybe just not that muscly. Yes, 160 Newton meters is quite impressive, but again, they don't publish figures, but I'm thinking a little bit more than a standard 114 cubic inch motor. Yeah, 90 horsepower maybe. And a bike that weighs 300 kilos and claims to be a muscle bike needs to make 120, 130 horsepower more, don't you think?
At least, I would say.
Yes, the gearbox, I sort of like it in a really perverted way. It works, but it goes home with such a massive mechanical thud. It's like when two railway cars couple together, you know what I mean?
Like a proper solid metal.
50 tons meeting 50 tons, there we go. But in a perverse way, I quite like that. Yeah, it's... Look, I'm glad in a way that I didn't put this bike up against its natural competitor. Look, the Triumph was handy to get hold of. You could bring it down.
This is true.
But what do you think is its natural competitor?
Well, it's got to be either the XDR Ducati,
Yes.
or the Triumph Rocket 3.
Yeah, well, I think the Rocket 3, there's a new one coming, so let's stick with the XDR. Can you believe it's cheaper than the 300 grand that this costs? It makes over 150 horsepower. and it's got loads of electronics. Much as I want to love this bike, they stop me from loving it. So in comparison to the Ducati, well, I tell you what, on here, we've got one of the highlights, the minimalist design of this bike.
Tell me.
Yes, okay, it's a full colour TFT dash with adjustable rider aids and wet weather. No,
Really?
sorry, no. That's the Ducati. That's the Ducati. The Harley.
Thrill me. Come on.
I might break down and cry. The Harley has got something, I kid you not, this minimalist design would not look out of place on 1983 Casio Kids watch. In fact, if that display was on a 10 grand Chinese scooter right now, I wouldn't be happy. It's a slap
how
in the
big
face.
is it? I mean, because obviously...
I believe it's 2.1 inches this way, but about half an inch that way. Yes, black and white, remember?
So we're in an age of full colour, 7-8 inch TFT, beautiful things,
Yes.
and that's got a 2.1 inch
Black and
black and
screen.
white
You can't
LED.
see anyway. I've got to put reading glasses on to read it, so yeah, I mean, utterly pointless. And I'm like the age of most of your Harley customers. You know? You can't read it. The standard fit and finish is pretty good. Okay, it's dirty now. We've been riding it in the rain, but the quality of the paint is lovely, and it does look like a lovely thing. Unfortunately, when you're riding it, there are also some things that put you off. Not only is the riding position, by the way, which makes you feel like a badass biker, like I said, 20 minutes, you'll be praying for any excuse to stop. And not only is the riding position uncomfortable very, very quickly, and I do mean properly uncomfortable, this foot forward riding position isn't good for riding anyway. It, you know, you can't use the feet to weight the pegs to go around corners.
It's the wrong position to do
that. It just feels wrong. You do feel cool, but then you feel very pained. But what I was going to say, things that irritate me riding along. Now, this is a blacked out look to the Harley, but when I'm riding, there is here, holding on the tank, a massive stainless steel bolt. Why?
It's silver. It sticks out like a... Well,
Why?
I won't say it.
Why? I've got to look at it all the time. Why isn't it black? I've paid 300 grand. Make it black.
Yes.
Unbelievable. So the paint looks good. You start to look at the details. Next to this bolt, there's all the welding around the headstock. I can't weld, and I could weld better than that.
That is possibly one of the worst welds I've ever
It's
seen.
unbelievable.
And what's that little sort of lump?
There's a splatter from the welding, which they haven't even ground away.
They've just sprayed over it.
Painted over it. It's that attention to detail that really irritates. This is a 300,000 rand bike, and on the usual nature of Harley-Davidson bikes, I do sound like I'm having a rant now, actually.
You are, yes.
Look, but I've just got to say this, there is a lovely bike waiting to get out of here. But again, grips, mirrors, levers, foot pegs, they're all really basic, horrible stuff. If you look at the equivalent Ducati, the Diavel, it's all really top quality stuff. Why isn't there a lovely billet tacho here with a bit of a digital display? Why aren't there proper grips? Why aren't there lovely mirrors? Why aren't there... I mean, why? Why have I got to spend more in the Harley catalogue to make it what it should be in the first place? Look, ultimately, Harry, I like this bike, but it should be 220 grand.
Yes, I agree. For what you're getting...
And then you're getting a load of bike for your money.
Yes.
At 300 grand, not so much.